Hi there, and welcome to episode 66 of the FSBO Smarts Podcast. I'm Steve Klein, and in this episode, we're going to talk about buying a home, your first home, 101. I'm going to go over all the details. We always talk about selling your home for sale by owner, but now I'm going to talk about buying your first home. So stay tuned for that. But first, we're going to start talking about some of the market changes. We talked about it on the last episode, but we're going to go in more depth into it in this episode. We're going to talk about some of the tech layoffs that I've seen in the marketplace, including some of the layoffs that might affect your home sale. We're also going to talk about the feds and seeing what they're up to this next month. Actually, this month, probably tomorrow. This episode comes out on June 10th, so as I'm filming this, we still got about a week away from that, but the feds are going to make a decision. And we also got some big players in the marketplace like Nvidia, they're going to do a 10-to-1 stock split. And so that's upping the market right now. So a lot of things are shaking up in the marketplace, which could affect your home sales. So stay tuned for that. But first, this intro. Hey, this is Steve Klein with the FSBO Smarts Podcast, bringing you the best tips and tools and techniques for sale by owner so that you can make the most out of your next home sale and become FSBO Smart. This is a great time for investing in real estate and also building up your portfolio. So we're going to talk about buying a home in this episode, but first let's talk about the marketplace. Now, there was a recent article in the Business Insider magazine that talked about the mortgage rates updates, and it went something like this. The housing experts were betting on market rates to decline this year in loser Fed policy. Now, I don't know, I want to go into that right now, but the one thing that they always talked about is that they were going to reduce the rates over time. And you remember me talking about this at the very beginning of the year. We all thought that it was going to go 0.25% each time that the Feds met. That hasn't happened yet, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. Now, it says yet the 30-year mortgage rate has been stuck around 7% all year. Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae say they expect mortgages to stay in the 7% range throughout 2024. Now, what this means for you is that any buyer that's going to be buying, it's not going to make it any more worse, but it's not going to make it any better either. So wherever we're at right now is pretty much where we're going to be at. Now, housing prices and sales have declined quite a bit in this first quarter of the year and into the second quarter, but I'm still optimistic that wherever we're at is wherever we're at. So if you're experiencing problems trying to sell your own home for sale by owner, the chances are real estate agents and realtors out there are going to be experiencing the same thing. So it's nothing really that you need to worry about at this moment, but we're going to keep an eye on it as we go through the rest of the year. Now, I said also that in this beginning, these first 6 episodes of this year, where we were going to focus on more of this type of thing, seeing where the economy is, seeing how that affects your home sale prices. It's something actually that you guys have asked about, so I wanted to include it in these episodes. So with that being said, I'm going to go right into this. And by the way, we may not do this for the rest of this year's episodes, but I want to still talk about it this year because there's a lot of stuff happening. Nvidia, like I mentioned earlier, is doing a 10-for-1 stock split. And I know you're saying, okay, Steve, what does that have to do with real estate, right? Well, anytime there's fluctuations in the market, it also has a ripple effect into other markets. And not to say that tech or anything like that has an effect on the real estate per se, but it does have an effect in the overall market. The marketplace does dictate what the houses go for, sure. And I think that when you see all of the tech downturns, the layoffs, things like that, that's what really can affect the prices of homes and the buyer's ability to buy those homes. So let's take a look. So right here we see that there's a TechCrunch-based tech layoffs tracker. And this was last updated on May 31st, 2024. We see that TikTok continues to tech workers cuts, and an LA-based EV manufacturing takes another hit. But look at what it says here. They're talking about tech layoffs into the thousands. They were adding some new additions to this. There's this U.S. job tracker database here that talks about there's a bunch of tables here that talks about the layoffs per business. But this is what I wanted to draw your attention to right here, where it says by the numbers. Layoffs during the week ending May 31st, 2024, at least 88 U.S. tech sector employees were laid off per a Crunchbase news tally. In 2024, at least 53,073 workers at the U.S.-based tech companies have lost their jobs so far in the year, according to the Crunch News tally. Now, in 2023, it was 191,000. So you see where this is going, right? It's getting worse. It's not getting any better. And we've already lost about 53,000 jobs, according to this database. Now, that's just one place that's tracking it. But if we look down here, it's also talking about the companies with the biggest workforce reductions are Amazon, 16,080 roles, Alphabet, which has 12,000 roles, Microsoft, 11,158, and Meta with 10,000. That's huge, right? I mean, especially if you're trying to sell your home and people are losing their jobs. Now, just keep in mind, this is where being a for sale by owner, you can really help these people, because if you can reduce your mortgage rate, or their mortgage rate rather, by just reducing your cost of getting into the home, let's just say they were $5,000 short. Well, you already know that you could save 20, 30, maybe even 40,000 depending on your home price. On a real estate agent commission. Well, if you're saving that, you can pass the savings along to the would-be home buyer. Now, buying a home is a little bit different, of course, than selling a home. And we're going to talk about buying a home in just a second into our main topic of this podcast. But just keep in mind that the more that these layoffs happen, the more that you may have to hold out. Now, luckily, the house sales price, the average sale, is still around that 30 to 40 day mark, which is awesome, because sometimes when things get tough, especially when things get tight, you can actually have to wait for like 6 months. We had a house that was on sale, and this was about, I think it was 5 years ago now, and it took us 6 months to sell, and that's unusual. I was used to getting houses sold sometimes within 2 weeks, sometimes within a month. Not 6 months, but just to know, as interest rates go up, the availability of housings, the availability that of inventory goes down. A lot of times you are waiting, and it's not your fault. It's just the way the market is. So just want to let you know that. Okay, so now we're going to get into our main section of this podcast, which is buying your home, your first home 101. So today we're going to be diving into the exciting journey of buying your home, your first home. Now, whether you're just starting out as a first homeowner, or if this is the first home you've ever bought, or if this is a second home, either way, this episode is for you. Now, in today's episode, we'll cover everything from assessing financing, getting a pre-approved for a mortgage, and even making an offer for the very first time on your home. So grab a notepad and make sure that you're taking notes before we begin. Now, before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Send us any questions or topics that you would want us to cover in the next episode, and let's get started. Okay, so understanding finances 101. The first thing that we want to talk about is financing. Buying a house is a major financial commitment, so it's crucial to get your financial house in order before you even start hunting for a house. Before house hunting, assess your financial health. Start by checking with the credit card scores. Your credit card scores will impact your interest rates on your mortgage and affect your overall ability to be approved. And you want to aim for your credit score to be around 620 or higher if possible. Although you could get a loan with a lot less than that, it's just that they may charge you a little bit more for your interest rate. Not much, but it's a little bit, because it's a risk that the banks are taking. But the higher score, the better. Next, understand your debt to income ratio. Lenders often use this as a determination to assess if you're qualified for the home. How much house can you afford? Ideally, your total monthly debt payments should be less than 36% of the gross monthly income. And now that's generous because some people even try to make it less than that, 24%. And that could even be, depending on how you look at it, that could be worse or better. Because I like to think of, if you have enough money to where your house payment is 25% of your overall budget, that makes it even better and it's easier to pay, right? Now let's talk about down payment. Saving for that down payment, let's say traditionally it's been 20% down payment, it isn't really necessary. For instance, if you're doing an FHA loan, you might be required to pay as little as 3.5% for your very first home. However, a larger down payment can also lower your monthly payments, and it'll eliminate the private mortgage insurance premium, this PMI. There's a fee that comes with that, an extra thing that's tacked onto your mortgage. So by paying more down, you don't have to pay that extra fee. Now finally, figure out how much of a house that you could afford. Use online calculators to estimate your monthly mortgage payment, including taxes and insurance. And don't forget to budget for your closing cost, which can be about 2 to 5% of the home's purchase price, and other expenses like moving and maintenance and all of the things that come with buying a home. Now, once your finances are in order, it's time to understand the home buying process. Getting pre-approved for a mortgage, it starts by getting the pre-approval. Now, this shows the sellers that you're a serious buyer and that you can afford to buy your home. Now, remember when I was talking about when you're selling your home, how you want to get a pre-approval? Well, the same thing happens when you're trying to buy a home. It's better to get pre-approved no matter if you're buying from a home that's a for sale by owner or even one that's owned by a real estate agent or one that's sold by a real estate agent. Now, pre-approval involves a lender review for your financial information, such as your income to debt, credit history, and things like that. Now, don't worry that they're not going to call your employer, although they might. They usually do that with the actual loan, but that's beside the point. The point is you're going to go to a bank to give them your wage. They're going to ask for the proof later if they don't do it in the pre-approval process. So just know that that's coming. Now at this part, after you've been pre-approved, you have a few options. One is that you can go and look for your own home online. Zillow is a great search tool, and it'll show you both houses that are sold for sale by owner, but also houses that are sold by a real estate agent. Now, obviously, since still 80% of the homes are sold out there with a real estate agent, I'm not saying don't go out there and buy anything from an agent. In fact, you may have to. If you find the house that you like, it doesn't matter if it's a for sale by owner or a real estate agent selling it. It's the one that matches the house that is truly meant for you. So keep that in mind when you're looking for your new home. Okay, so now you've found the home that you love. Now let's talk about making an offer and a closing of the deal. When you find the home that you love, work with the agent or the for sale by owner homeowner to decide on the offer price and consider the home's market value, how long it's been on the market, and the seller situation. Include all the contingencies and make sure that everything is lined up in your offer, like financing, inspection, just as all stuff to protect you, yourself. Now, obviously, I'm not covering everything in this podcast. Make sure you talk with your agent or your lawyer or anyone else that you need in order to facilitate looking for your home. But the main thing is you want to make sure the inspection is listed on the earnest money agreement so that you can make sure that you get inspection and you have the right of refusal if that inspection doesn't come back either okay or they don't. You can negotiate how much they will give you in order to fix those things, or hopefully the homeowner will fix them before you take ownership. Now you'll also need an appraisal for your home, one that hopefully will match the loan amount that you're qualified for. Once that's done, the closing process is merely going through those title searches and then the final signing and then the closing of your house. Signing the documents and paying the closing costs are the final step. And all this stuff I kind of go over, actually I do go over, all of this stuff in my course, the FSBO Smart Home Seller course. And you can find that at FSBOSmarts.com. So congratulations, you're now a homeowner. Now here are some tips for settling into your new home. So once you're in, you have all the luxuries of home, including the wonderful job of maintaining your home. So just make sure that you do that and enjoy living in your new wonderful home. So now we're going to take a few questions for some of you out there that wrote in on this very topic. First one is, what are some of the mistakes that first-time home buyers make? Well, one of them is kind of what I mentioned earlier about getting pre-approved. A lot of times when they're going out searching for homes, they're homes that either may be out of their league as far as like the price, or they might even be lower. Like there might be some houses that surprisingly are lower and they may want to get a bigger house. Now either way, sometimes if you find a lower house, you're living within your means, and that's kind of a good thing. So don't knock that. Another thing is overlooking the additional costs of the property taxes and the home maintenance. And sometimes the final thing on this is the buyers tend to get emotional. Like when you're looking at a house, you tend to go, whoa, this house, this is so cool. I want this house. But then you got to realize, okay, that's just my emotions. I don't want to get emotional when I'm looking at this house, even though I really, really want it. Like, let's just say you have a house and you just really love it. If you get emotions, they can sense it. And then sometimes other buyers will sense that. In other words, you might get in a bidding war with someone, and you don't want that. So just keep a cool head. So question number 2. Is it better to buy a fixer-upper or a move-in ready house? That's a good question. When I was buying my first house, it was actually ready to move in. I did not buy a fixer-upper my very first home. Well, first home I moved into myself. The very first home was an investment property, and it did need a lot of work. So that kind of thing you definitely want to consider when you're moving into your first home. If it's a first home where your family is going into it, then I would say, decide right away what you want. A lot of it depends on your budget, right? Like if you want to get a fixer-upper so that you can have a good investment property and you already have some built-in equity, by all means do that, because this way you're getting the most bang for your buck. And it might be convenient for you to sell it later on because you have equity to move in, move up or move down, depending on what you want to sell it for. So those are just a few questions. Remember, you can submit those questions to me if you would like to have them answered on the next podcast. Well, that's about it for this episode. I hope you found this helpful, and if you have, share it with some others, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review, either on Spotify or Apple. Join us next time and we'll answer the question, when should I use a real estate agent when buying my home? Well, thanks for listening to the FSBO Smarts Podcast, and happy house hunting. We'll see you in the next episode.